All right, this video is going to go over the pages in your packet that talk about slope-intercept form and point slope formula, and then we'll do a separate video for the standard form page. So let's get into it. Slope-intercept form. This is just talking about the way that we set up our equation so that different terms in the equation are in specific spots so we know what each term means. So what am I talking about? Let's get into it. So slope-intercept form, the way that is written in our equation is y equals mx plus b. And it's always a little, I don't know, frustrating or scary when all we're doing is using letters. And you're like, this is math class, where are the numbers at? But all these letters are doing is they're representing the fact that it can really be any number depending on the equation. So in this formula, this slope-intercept form, the letter m is going to represent the slope. And we just did a whole bunch of equations on the last couple pages of your packet in finding the slope. So once you know what the slope is, that's going to be the letter m in this equation. So if you're given an equation in this format, you don't have to do any work to find the slope. You just have to know which number to look at. And it's going to be represented by the letter m here. When you get the equation, as we're about to see in the examples, it's not going to say m equals. It's just going to have a number there. But that number that's in front of the x, the variable, is going to be our slope. So that's what the m is. The b is our y-intercept. Y-intercept. Or where the graph, the line on the graph, is crossing our y-axis. That's the y-intercept, right? This is something that we learned in Unit 2A, our x and y-intercepts, but it's where the line on the graph crosses your y-axis. For example, here's our y-axis, here's our x-axis. If we have a line that goes there, this spot right here is our y-intercept. All right, so now that we have some of these things defined, right, y equals mx plus b, that's our slope-intercept form. We know that m equals the slope, and b is the y-intercept. Okay, b is the y-intercept. So now we're going to look at some equations, and we are just going to identify what is our slope and what is our y-intercept. Okay, so this is one of those things that we don't want to overthink. Right? There's no solving really happening here. We're just looking and identifying things. Our first equation says y equals negative 5 over 2x minus 3. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. M equals the slope. M comes in front of the x. What number on this equation right here comes in front of the x? We have a negative 5 over 2 in front of the x. So that's going to be our slope. M equals negative 5 over 2. Our y-intercept is the letter b in our equation. Now the equation says plus b. When I look at this example, there's a minus sign. That's okay. It can either be a plus sign or a minus sign, or sometimes there won't be any sign at all, as we'll see in one of our examples. It doesn't matter if it's a plus or a minus. If there is a number at the end of the equation, it's that number plus whatever sign is in front of it is what our y-intercept is. So in this case, our y-intercept is this negative 3. So our y-intercept equals negative 3. And that's all we're doing for these example problems. We are going through and we are identifying our slope, the number that's in front of our x, and our y-intercept, the number that comes at the end of the equation. There's maybe 2 questions on here that are designed to maybe make you think, maybe make you pause and think. And so we'll take a look at those as we go through them. So let's go through the rest of these. We'll go through kind of quick, and then we'll talk about point slope formula after this. So for our second example here, our slope is in front of the x. So m equals -3/5. Our y-intercept is at the end, and so that equals 4. All right, here's one of our ones that might be tricky for some people. Remember that if it's just a negative sign with no number attached to it, there is an invisible 1. So our slope, whenever we just see the negative, actually, I'm going to not have my 1 there. Whenever we just see the negative, our m is going to be -1. If it said y equals x plus 7, where that x is a positive, then our slope would be a +1. Our y-intercept is still this number at the end. So our y-intercept equals 7. On this equation here, our slope equals -3. Our y-intercept equals 2. On this equation here, our slope equals 1/4. And I don't know why the pen is not wanting to write well right now, so I apologize for some of the sloppiness here, but we'll get through it. M equals 1/4, and then everybody freaks out. There's no number at the end. What do we put? If there's nothing at the end, then that's kind of what you put, right? Our y-intercept, if there isn't one, is going to equal 0, right? There's nothing there, so it equals 0. It's going to be passing right through the origin of our graph, right through that middle point. All right, our last example here, y equals 2x minus 1. Our slope is going to be that 2. Our y-intercept is going to be that -1. So our slope is 2, and our y-intercept is -1. Okay, so if you are given an equation and it's already in this slope-intercept form, hopefully you will feel confident about identifying what our slope of the graph is, the line on the graph, and what our y-intercept is. That is the hope there. If you have questions, you're still unsure about things, you're not sure where I'm getting my answers from, please come see me in class, ask questions, ask your teacher. Okay, point slope formula is another form of an equation of a line that you're going to see. And we are going to then manipulate this formula so that it looks like the slope-intercept form, right? So we're going to be given this point slope formula, and we're going to move things around until it looks like the equations that we just did for slope-intercept form. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to write out what our point slope formula is. So our point slope formula, we have y minus y1 equals let's go back and use some different colors. So I'm not changing up my colors. We'll do y minus y1 equals m times x minus, and we'll use green, x1. So we can use this formula if we know what the slope is, and we have a bunch of different ways we can find out the slope. We just learned some of them, right? If you're given a graph and you're given 2 points on that graph, you can count up and over. You can do your rise over your run. If you're given a table, right, you can do your rate of change, your change in y over your change in x. Or if you're given 2 points, you can do your slope formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if you're given something where you know your slope and you're given a point, so you have an x value and a y value, you can use your point slope formula to figure out an equation for a line so that you can then graph that line on a graph. So how does this work? Let's just work through these couple of practice problems, and hopefully you will catch on to see what it is that we're doing. Okay, first thing, now again, in math, a lot of the skills that we learn build upon each other. Okay, a lot of the skills that we learn build upon each other. So we already learned about distribution. So that's something that we're going to have to do here. We're going to have to distribute the number that's in front of these parentheses to every number inside the parentheses. So for this first one, we have a 2. We're going to distribute that to the x and to the negative 4. So I'm going to rewrite my y minus 1 equals 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. Now it almost looks like y equals mx plus b, but I have a minus 1 on the left-hand side of the equal sign. So to get rid of that minus 1 on the left-hand side of the equal sign, I'm going to do the opposite operation, and I am going to add 1. What I do on one side of the equal sign to keep my equation balanced, I'm going to add 1 to the right side of the equal sign. I'm going to add 1. I'm still going to have my y. The negative 1 plus 1 cancel each other out. Equal sign comes down. My 2x drops down. Negative 8 plus 1 is going to be negative 7. Now this looks like all of the equations that we just did with slope-intercept form, right? This equation here looks like all of these equations up here. Our slope is 2. Our y-intercept is negative 7. Our m is 2. Our y-intercept is negative 7. And then we're just going to do the same thing on these other 3. We are going to distribute the number in front of our parentheses. Anything, so we're going to drop down our left-hand side, y minus 4 equals 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. And my pen's acting up again. That's frustrating for everybody. All right, y minus 4 equals 1/2 x. 1/2 times negative 2. 1/2 of negative 2 is just negative 1, so minus 1. Okay, now I need to get my negative 4 gone from the left side of the equal sign. I need to move it over to the right side of the equal sign. So I'm going to plus 4. And I'm going to plus 4. And I'm going to y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3. My slope is 1 over 2. My y-intercept is plus 3. So my slope is 1 over 2. My y-intercept is 3. Rinse and repeat. We're doing the same thing for the next question. I have 2/3 in front of my parentheses. That's going to get distributed to both terms. So my y minus 0 drops down. 2/3 times x is just 2/3 x. Some people overthink that and they get nervous because I'm multiplying a fraction and uh-oh, what do I do? If it's a number times a variable, your answer is just that number and the variable together. So 2/3 times x is just 2/3 x. And then 2/3 times 6, you can just multiply straight across, right? That's really 6 over 1. So 2 times 6, so here, let me write out what I'm saying. 2/3 times 6, which is really 6 over 1. If I multiply that straight across, I have 12 over 3. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 1 is 3. And then that can reduce. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 12 4 times. And so that just reduces down to 4 plus 4. Okay, I have a y minus 0. Really, that just can kind of go away, but to continue using the same pattern we have been, we'll show you that. So I can say plus 0 plus 0. The zeros on the left will cancel. That leaves me with y equals 2/3 x. 4 plus 0 is just still 4, so plus 4. My slope is 2 over 3. My y-intercept is 4. Slope, oops, I don't know why I'm writing slope. We're going to call our slope m equals 2 over 3. Our y-intercept equals 4. All right, last one. We have a 4 in front of our parentheses. That's going to get multiplied to both terms inside of the parentheses. On the left-hand side, our y plus 9 just drops down. Equals 4 times x is just 4x. 4 times 0 is 0. So I can leave it like this, or I can write plus 0. It doesn't matter either way. I want to move the 9 over from the left side to the right side, so I have to subtract 9 since it's a positive 9. What I do on one side, I do to the other, minus 9, minus 9. Now I have y equals 4x. 4x minus 9. My slope is 4 over 1. My y-intercept is negative 9. All right, so my slope equals 4. My y-intercept equals negative 9. And remember, whenever you have a whole number as your slope, like in this equation we have 4, it's really 4 over 1. So when you're graphing it, you're rising 4, and then your run is 1. So you're going up 4 over 1. So this takes us through slope-intercept form and point-slope formula. You're going to see a whole bunch of this. You're going to get a whole bunch of opportunities to practice with this. So if you're still a little shaky on either of them, don't worry. You'll have plenty of opportunity to get better. Just remember, if you have questions, please make sure you are asking. Make sure you're either asking myself, asking your teachers, you're going to FIT, you're going to tutorials, whatever it is you need to do so that you feel comfortable with this material. Hopefully you found this helpful, and I will see you in class.